Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yemi Sokumbi. I'm Associate Professor of Dermatology and Laboratory Medicine and Pathology. I also serve as the Associate Program Director of the Dermatology Residency Program at Mayo Clinic, Florida. I serve as the Associate Medical Director for the Department of Business Development on the Mayo Clinic, Florida campus. I am the chair of our Medical School Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council on the Mayo Clinic, Florida campus. And I'm a passionate advocate for all things diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am excited and I have been empowered, really refreshed to be at the RISE conference, just thinking through, reflecting, being inspired, been strengthened, and now really feeling empowered to take on this good work forward. In our session, we addressed the healing of the isms, and we talked about building an organizational structure that allows us to do this. We decided that 3 themes were of paramount importance, and that was we need to acknowledge, we need to address, and then the healing comes. To help us acknowledge, I want to share just a little bit of background. I am originally from Nigeria, and I shared in this session the recognition that my Blackness only came to my awareness until my teen years. Why my teen years? Well, because I lived in Nigeria, a country where everyone looked like me. And here I was in the United States, and everything about me seemed to be focused on the color of my skin. It's important to address that because when I decided to pursue a career in medicine, it did present many, many hurdles of people telling me all of the things that I couldn't do, that I wouldn't succeed at. I was fortunate to attend the medical school of my dreams, so Mayo Clinic Medical School in Rochester, Minnesota, where I was supported. During those first 2 years, I was excited to be learning from the best. But when I got into my clinical years, I shared a story of how I acutely became aware that my color remained an issue. This came from jabs from patients commenting on not wanting to be cared for from someone who looked like me. It came from comments on my competence, and it came from passive-aggressive comments, many comments on very good for you, so good for you, good to see you doing well, you talk so well, you present so well, you're so smart. And while all of those might appear to be compliments, there were always silent tones of what they might mean. And after a while, I decided that perhaps I was paranoid and maybe these were really not insults, maybe they were compliments. But I wouldn't let that go to chance. I constantly built that strong muscle that most minorities have had to build to survive. And so I was resilient, powered with grit, and I moved forward. I pursued a residency in dermatology, a specialty focused on skin color, the irony of that. And once again, it was a lonely road because there were not many who looked like me. And it was a very competitive specialty where I could not fail. That was a lot of pressure. Fortunately, I was able to bypass that, and here I am today. Today, I am here sharing my story because I have made it an important purpose in my life to support those who might not be heard. I am passionate about supporting our medical students, our residents, our fellows by sharing my story so that they know they're not alone and they're capable of extraordinary things. So how do we address? Well, I will say that part of addressing is the talking about these things. The past year have led to lots of vulnerabilities for me. I have shared stories that I've kept close and held near that only friends and family have been aware of. And the reason why I share them is perhaps that this story can impact a learner somewhere, a young staff somewhere, someone who's thinking that they're not where they should be because they're not deserving, is to affirm and say that you are where you should be, you are deserving, and that we all need to do better to ensure that we create an environment that is inclusive and allows all people to thrive. When we address the isms, now I'm focused on racism, but of course you all know that sexism is part of this journey, that we have things like homophobia, we have Islamophobia, we have xenophobia, we have ableism. So this goes on. And some people have to deal with many layers of this. So we have to really appreciate the burden of carrying these isms around. As we look to build the future of our institution, of the organization, of the country, the acknowledgement and the addressing is a critical role so that we can get the best of all people. When we address these issues, it allows us to have transparency. It allows for the people who have remained voiceless to share their voices. And it allows for those who might come from a place of privilege to do some more listening, active listening, as we discuss how can we get people on board to be allies, meaning people who will champion this cause, who will take this cause on, who will move the needle forward so that really we can move ourselves forward to that greater place that I know that we are capable of. For the healing, I'm excited. I'm excited that these conversations have become commonplace. It has been quite cathartic for me to have these conversations these days because I've held them near and dear to my heart. And so that is part of the healing, to create spaces such as this wonderful RISE conference, where I joked with my colleagues who put together this wonderful conference that I go to many medical conferences. I speak at medical conferences, and I never cry at medical conferences. But I cried because the vulnerability shared by my peers, colleagues, outside of Mayo, have just led to an awakening. I am reinvigorated. I am passionate about what we're doing with this work. In my role in business development, where I serve as the Associate Medical Director of Business Development, I'm excited about how we create a space that is inclusive of all folks, so women, minorities, to engage in innovation, to move innovation forward. We know we're better for it. And so to have the excitement, it's really palpable, the environment and the path forward is clear to me. We will acknowledge the hurts. We will address the issues. We will heal. We will heal by education. We educate ourselves. We educate others so that we provide them the tools to join in this great work. We will empower. We will empower not only ourselves, we will empower the communities that we inhabit. We will actively participate in being the voice for the voiceless or the voice for the oppressed. We will move this work forward and we will allow ourselves grace when needed, space when needed, and the openness to heal. We cannot undo the past. That's why it's the past. However, we can influence the future. And that is what I ask of us all today as we rise together and take this on. Finally, I want to share with one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou. And she talks about, I will not merely survive. So we're not planning, survival is not the goal. That used to be the goal. Now we've changed direction. I will thrive, and I will do so with compassion, passion, some humor, and style. I joke about the style component, of course. However, we have to thrive. And I look forward to Mayo Clinic and its leaders, like we're doing today, rolling up our sleeves, the entire body of our institution, getting our hands dirty, facing some ugly truths, and moving forward to a brighter, better future. As I reflect on the powerful ability to be emotional about these topics and to have space to discuss these issues, I realize what has been lacking in some of my medical meetings. What I mean by that is we've always focused our time, energy, and really, in all honesty, the old structure of medicine has put the science first, which is of course, paramount importance as we make new discoveries and take care of our patients. However, we cannot forget the people who care for patients and the people who are out working within the teams, within the healthcare, and of course, within our communities and the country at large. We need to create spaces for these conversations to occur at all levels. I have been wearing a mask for a long time. COVID pandemic, of course, required that we wear masks, but this was not new to me because to survive in the spaces that I've occupied, I have always had to wear a mask. To have a meeting that allows me to take off this mask, that provides a space of vulnerability amongst peers, amongst colleagues, has been incredible. It has offered support. It has offered tools for me to take away, to implement in real time when I go back to my practice. It has offered the young learners voices that look like them, sound like them, sharing information that they otherwise wouldn't share. It has created a platform that is life-changing. When I reflect on the platform that was provided today for me and for others to have these conversations, I cannot help but feel hopeful. I feel hopeful because despite my years in medicine, I'm now coming to a realization that I needed to share these stories, that sharing these stories is an important part of my healing, my journey, and that when I heal, I can help others heal too. We've recently, of course, talked about the issues with racism and racism really being an independent risk factor for many medical conditions. Now, without that awareness, we've all just carried this burden, even without that knowledge. When I'm given a space to talk about this, to discuss these issues with folks, to learn from people based on their stories, to feel empowered, to feel strengthened, to be inspired, to have space to reflect on my journey, this has been critical to my healing. I step out of this conference feeling refreshed, knowing the task ahead, and knowing that the journey will not always be smooth, it will not always be easy, but I have a community, and that this community is rapidly growing, and that just like within our institution, whereby it goes without saying that the needs of the patients always come first, that a new culture will be birthed, that it will be a new day within this great institution, a culture that supports differences, that encourages inclusivity, and that allows all to fulfill their potential.